Okay, hello everyone. So today I'm going to kind of like discuss or maybe just saying my opinion about why that Japan have less infection compared to other countries like the United States and Europe. So just to kind of like clarify, I have been living in Japan for 5 years now as a student, and I have lived in pretty much in Tokyo for around 3 years, and then I live in another rural part of Japan for another 2 years. So I kind of like get sense of how's the life in the big city and also in the small city. Okay, but let's get back to my main point. So Japan is famous for Chinese tourists, and Chinese tourists actually had been flocking down to Japan for I think since January and also February. Yeah, but since January, because at that time Japan didn't kind of like execute to bar foreigners and Chinese planes for coming in. So people from Wuhan were here, people from Shanghai were also here in Japan. And as you know, like they're all everywhere, right? And many of them might be asymptomatic, so they might not feel sick, however they are still contagious. So in the case that let's say that the people from China came to Japan first before going to Europe and the United States, why does the infection rate in Japan is quite low? I'm not saying that the government is kind of like covering up. Of course they do still part, however Japanese government is not like Chinese government that kind of like have to lie all the time, because there's a free press here. So let's assuming that the numbers published by the Japanese government does not really like the gap is not that big with the real numbers. So if you see like kind of like the graph, sorry I cannot put the graph here. If you just see the graph of rate of infection in the whole countries, Japan has a really low rate, and one of the reasons that I think it's also backed up by some of the research, the culture of wearing masks. So while I live in Tokyo, when I use the train, especially during April, yeah, I think like February, March, April, so kind of like before the winter going to the spring, I guess, I can see a lot of people wearing masks even though it's not the coronavirus, but it's because just of the seasonal flu. And I was told when I studied in Japanese schools, if I kind of feel unwell, I had fever, I should not come to school, I should go to the doctor. And if I only have cough, it is a manner for me to use mask. So there are a couple of days that I didn't wear mask and I was like coughing a lot in class. Of course that kind of like disturbing the whole classes, and the teacher didn't really like ask me go home and wear a mask, but then it's like, are you okay, why are you not wearing mask, in a very friendly sarcastic way. So I kind of like learned the hard way of why I had to wear masks when I am sick, or let's say that I'm just recovering from kind of like the flu and I just have a continuous cough. So at that time I was coughing for 3 days, and then I think 5 days later on, another classmate also got sick, and eventually a lot of people got sick. So I kind of like blame myself, like, did I actually infect them? I might have had influenza at that time, or it might not came from me, but still kind of you have like a guilt sense. This is coming from perspective of a foreigner who did not have the Japanese basic education of manner, and I still feel guilt. So you imagine about real Japanese people who kind of like really cares about the surrounding. So they will wear masks everywhere they go, and particularly around this season, a lot of people have already wear mask. Okay, so the conclusion is wear a mask so that you can lower the rate of infection. You do not have to really, use the surgical mask, because kind of like, how to say, I feel like, if you wear a mask, even though you do not have the symptom, you might have carried the virus, right? You might be asymptomatic. So you kind of like have to protect the people around you. Yes. So not just wearing a mask, but also wear it properly. So in case that you wear glasses, it's very easy to tell whether you have worn the mask properly or not. So let's say I cover a mask here, and then if you breathe and if your glasses kind of like become blur, that means you're not properly wearing the mask. Okay, but there's a lot of video about showing how to use that. And so first is wearing a mask, but most importantly, even though you wear a mask, right, the mask filter only kind of like 85% of the particles. So if you shout out loud, if you talk out loud, the particle will kind of like, burst from your mask. So like a little droplets, right? So that's the thing. If you have ever been to Japan and you ride the train, you kind of like surrounding is kind of like nature, and no one is talking except maybe as a few tourists and some people who are with like their friends, but still they don't talk loudly, which is also one of the things I like while I live in Japan, because when kind of like, how to say, you're already tired from your work and then you're being disturbed by other people talking on the phone and then shouting at you. I think you see a lot of this kind of people in New York subway and also kind of like other thing, right? So Japanese are quiet in the public spaces. So by being quiet in public spaces that you don't shout out loud, you prevent the risk of infection, right? Because if you don't open your mouth, how can the virus go out from your mouth? It stays in your body. So please, people, during this pandemic, please do not make any kind of shout. Don't talk out loud in the public. Just assume that you are a person carrying the virus, and then you don't want to cause panic. You don't want to infect others, right? Because let's say you don't care about other people, but then if other people got infected and then your family members go out and they get infected from the person you infected, again, you're kind of like, this is like a cycle that will never end. So practice how the Japanese behave. I'm not saying that Japanese are perfect, but then the government is not testing rapidly as South Korea. The government did not have a very exclusive contact tracing, maybe like Singapore. There's no lockdown. But then how the infection rate is so low? Is because Japanese are healthy? Not really. Not all people are healthy, right? A lot of people got infected in kind of like hospital because they didn't wear a mask, kind of like that, like. So that's what I think, and I've been thankful for the hygiene manner that has been brought up by Japanese people. Kind of feel safe when I see a lot of people wearing masks. So for the government who said that you don't need a mask is only needed for the medical workers. No, you need to wear a mask if you go out. If you're inside home like me, you don't need to wear a mask, but you have to go out. Please wear a mask. And you don't really need a surgical mask, right? If you're asymptomatic, you can also just use the cloth and then don't talk. If you don't talk, the virus won't go out. Just pretend that you cannot talk at all. Like, come on. We have to, of course, like, you don't buy the N95 mask. Leave it for the medical workers, surgical mask as well, because you need to leave it for people who need it the most, which is like people who have already the worst symptom, very contagious, and also for the medical workers. Make your own mask. There's tons of cloth masks out there. You can even use kitchen paper towel to make your own mask. So for the end of this video, I'm sorry that it took so long and kind of like going out for other topics. Wear a mask if you go out, and if you go out and if you already wear a mask, please don't talk out loud, and just please don't talk. Just, you know, buy your things, pay, and then go back straight to your home. Very, very simple. If you can do all that, you know, you protect the others, others will follow you, you're also being protected, and you can lower, you can, I don't know what they say, like bend the curve bend the curve, so that all health workers don't need to treat you just because of your irresponsibility. I know the virus did not come, I know the virus came from China, let's say, but then it's our responsibility as well to tackle the virus. So please practice public hygiene. Stay home if you can. If you cannot, wear a mask. That's the end of the video. Thank you.